All right, welcome back to Overcome Babylon. I'm Abraham Ojeda. So far, we have gone all the way from the beginning of the 70 Shabua, the 70 weeks in English, right? That's how people commonly know it as. The prophecy all the way to the present. And now, hopefully you've, checked out all the episodes, starting with episode 2 of the podcast all the way until now, because we're going to be getting into some really heavy-duty stuff. It's very detailed. It's probably the most time-sensitive and urgent message that I have ever had the privilege of putting together and the honor of putting together. And I'm just super excited to get into it. I can't wait to show you everything that's involved with the Abomination of Desolation, just from start to finish. So let's get into it. All right, so the title of this episode is On the Wing of Abomination, right? At least that's what's on the thumbnail. But 2023 is going to be the year of the Abomination of Desolation. I'm not somebody who takes the scriptures lightly. I know basically the penalties or consequences of leading people astray using the Bible. But I think anybody that rationally is looking at the world around us today understands that something really doesn't feel right. There's this extreme gut feeling, this gut level feeling where it's just like something is dead wrong. Something really big is about to take place. And that's the feeling that I had back in 2020. And when I started researching and learning about all these things. And when it dawned on me what all these verses were really talking about, the 70 weeks prophecy, how it's been butchered by the Judeo-Christian Western world and everything, I knew that I had to share this message. I knew that I had to get this out there one way or the other. And so here we are. And I thank you for joining this podcast. This is absolutely life-changing information. It's so relevant. It's so incredible that this was sealed until the time of the end, and now it's open to our understanding. So let's go ahead and start with a quick recap, right? And I want to start by saying, I have been faithful to you. And Proverbs 27:6 says, faithful are the wounds of a friend, but the kisses of an enemy are deceitful. I've been faithful in showing a lot of verses that people don't really want to touch. I've talked about sin. What is sin? All the way from the very first episode of this presentation, which was episode 2 of the podcast. I talked about some things that people, they get kind of, like basically I'm not a skinny jeans wearing tattooed pastor that's just all about, having the best coffee and donuts in town. Okay? I'm a straightforward, no BS type of guy that just wants to tell it how it is. And so hopefully that you've seen that even though there's times when I might get a little rough or I might say things that are just really straightforward, understand that faithful are the wounds of a friend. If a friend is basically sharpening iron, which is a process, it's not just smooth sailing, but I have been somebody that I know has really pushed people. I know I've probably pushed you a little bit during this message to re-examine a lot of things. And so I just want to exhort you, encourage you to stick with what I'm about to show you. Stick with it from start to finish. I know it's going to be kind of long. Let's just talk about what I've promised, right? I remember I told you we're going to learn the true meaning of the 70 weeks of Daniel. We're going to learn who this prophecy applies to, the obvious role of the United Nations and the Great Reset agenda and the 70 weeks prophecy, the meanings of several Hebrew words that have been poorly translated into English. I told you you're going to get a good idea of what the Abomination of Desolation is, which is exactly what we're going to talk about in this episode, and exactly when this is going to take place. By now, you understand why this vision was sealed until the time of the end, and by now, you understood the lies. The church leaders and seminaries have been pushing on us for hundreds of years. Okay? So let's go back to Daniel 9:24. Remember I told you, 70 weeks, everybody starts off on the wrong foot here. It's 70 Shabua. The word in Hebrew, Shabua, actually, you can easily connect that to the Feast of Shabua. And when you do that, you realize, oh, this is 49. So 70 49s are determined. Remember, Daniel was told to seal this prophecy until the time of the end. He wrote it in code on purpose. And so what we find is 70 times 49 is 3,430 years. And then it says, for your people in your holy city. Well, who are his people? And the problem that most Westerners have an issue with is they think that it's just a small country in the Middle East that it's just modern day Jews. Jews. But I've showed you that we have to think and consider how the Bible talks about the lost sheep of the house of Israel, the northern 10 tribes that never returned after Assyrian exile. Only the southern tribes, they came back with from captivity in Babylon. They came with Nehemiah. Even that was only a small remnant of the south. Some of them stayed behind in Babylon. So I've shown you that Daniel's people are mostly in the US, UK, Australia, Canada, Latin America, and Europe. Those are by far the biggest concentrations. So when it says, real quick, going back, that this prophecy is for your people in your holy city, that then this is not just a small country in the Middle East, it's much bigger than that. And so when we look at Daniel 9:25, from the going forth of the command, right? From the going forth of the command, we understand that this was the rising of the sun in the east, to exit towards the east, brought out east. That's what Mosa means. Mosa dabar. From the going forth of the command. Dabar is a speech. It's a spoken word. It's a command given by speaking and utterance, a saying. So when we look at Mosa dabar in its correct context, after understanding the 70 Shabua, I've shown you that the spoken command to exit Egypt to the east in order to enter the land of Canaan, the promised land, was exactly what this was talking about. And that command was given to Moses at the burning bush, which I showed you. I derived it. I derived the date for you, and it is 1383 BC. Then from there, we understand where the clock starts. The first 7 Shabua, 7 times 49, 343 years. Until Mashiach Nagid. Well, who's Mashiach Nagid? I already showed you. This is the anointed prince, David. The first Mashiach Nagid in all of Scripture was King Saul. He did what was right in his own eyes. He forfeited his kingship. We find out David is actually born in 1040 BC, which is exactly 343 years from the command given at the burning bush in 1383 BC. So from this information, then we understand, okay, 62 Shabua are left over. We do 62 times 49. That gives us 3,038 years. Again, if you haven't tuned into the other episodes of this podcast, this might be a little overwhelming. But when you look at the cycles in the entire 120 Shabua of mankind, you discover that the burning bush occurred in the 51st Shabua of mankind. And then if you add the first 7 Shabua, then add the 62 Shabua, you will see that the period of history, it occurred from 1044 BC to 1995 AD. So just a few years ago, right? 1044 BC to 1995. This is the 3,038 years of the 62 Shabua that we are being told about here in Daniel 9:25. And remember, there's no year 0 when counting from BC to 80. So that's how we get that number, right? Then what Daniel 9:26 showed us is after the 62 Shabua, after those 3,038 years that I just talked about, which is the same thing as saying after the year 1995. So once the first 7 plus 62 Shabua are completed and only 1 Shabua remains, then this is the 70th and final Shabua of Daniel's prophecy, which we're living in right now from 1996 to 2044. Okay? And what happens after the year 1995? What happens during the 70th week, the 70th Shabua? It says Mashiach Karat. It means the destruction. Anointed will be cut off. That means the destruction of the anointed people of all 12 tribes of Israel, regardless of their moral righteousness. They're going to be destroyed, okay? This is what's been happening in the US, UK, Israel, and Europe because of the people of a prince. It's the Am Nagid, the people of the prince. This is Klaus Schwab. Again, this is what I've shown this to the best of my research and everything that I've been able to piece together. Klaus Schwab was nothing. He was nobody until 2020.